morning YouTube, and welcome to my channel Jules Craft Room, and this is week 3 of the summer picnic crochet along, and that's a picture of the pattern. And week 3 I believe we are adding to our week 2, so we won't have to do any chain. So I'll turn you round and we'll get started. Right, so I've broken this video up into 2 parts because this week 3 we are doing a strawberry ripples pattern and a raspberry ripples pattern, and they're 2 separate sections, one for either end of the blanket. The first one, the strawberry ripple section, will be going on top of last week's, so we won't be chaining 171, and we will be joining onto the top of this, whereas the raspberry one we have to do a complete section starting with a chain of 171. I apologise for my croaky voice, I've got a nasty cold at the moment. Right, so we start with the strawberry ripple one using our panel that we've finished in week 2, and it says you got a bit work on the wrong side, so I have a stitch marker which tells me which is the right side, so I know that I'll be starting my work from here, which is the wrong side. So I'm doing a slip knot, and then I'm joining my white onto this first stitch here. And I'll be weaving that in as I go along. Right, so row 1, which is the wrong side, you join into the first stitch and you chain 3. That's 1, 2, 3. And you 1 treble into each stitch. So you'll do a treble into the first stitch, because this doesn't count as a stitch. So you'll do a treble into there. And you'll do another treble all the way along into each stitch, and you should have 170 trebles. So I'm weaving in my end as I go along, and you just go along doing a treble in each stitch all the way along, and I'll see you at the end. Right, so when you get to the end, your last stitch should be in the top of here. And that gives me 170 trebles, and I've counted and checked. And that is row 1 complete. And now we turn, and this will be our right side now. And we do 3 chain, 1, 2, 3. Now this chain doesn't count as a stitch. And then we do a treble into the first stitch, so the bottom of that 3 chain. And then you do 1 chain, you miss a stitch, so you miss this one next to it, and you do a treble into the next stitch. And then you repeat that to the end, and then you do a treble in the last stitch. So it's 1 chain, miss a stitch, treble into the next stitch. So you're doing the same pattern as you did down here. And you do that all the way along, and I'll see you at the end. Right, so when you get to the end of row 2, you should be doing 1 last treble in that last stitch. And then you turn for row 3. Now, row 3 is 3 chain, and you do a treble into the first stitch, and as the chain doesn't count as a stitch, you do it right in that first stitch, and then you do a treble into each chain space and treble to the end. So that will be a treble into there and a treble into the chain space, treble into there, and a treble into the chain space. You do that all the way along and you should end up with 170 trebles. I'll see you at the end. Right, at the end of row 3 you should have 170 trebles, and the last one will go in there, and I've counted them as I've gone along. And row 4 is you turn, do 3 chain, and you do a treble into the first stitch, and then you do a treble into every stitch all the way along, so you have 170 trebles, and then you'll be fastening off the white. And I'll see you for row 5 with the lagoon blue. Right, so I come to the end of row 4 and I've fastened off the white, and we're not to turn, so you don't turn, and you'll start at this end, and that should be your right side, which mine is, because you can see my stitch marker. So this is the right side, and you're joining the lagoon blue, and you're inserting it into the first stitch, so which will be that one there, and you're doing 1 chain, and you're doing a double crochet into the first stitch. This chain doesn't count as a stitch, so you put it back in the where you joined it, and then you start the repeat, which is 1 chain, miss a stitch, 1 double crochet into the next stitch. And you repeat that all the way to the end. So it's 1 chain, miss a stitch, 1 double crochet, 1 chain, miss a stitch, 1 double crochet. And you do that all the way along, and I'll see you at the end of row 5. Right, so when you get to the end of row 5, you've done your repeat, and then you do a double crochet into the last stitch, like that, and then you fasten off, and then it tells you to turn and rejoin the white, which begs the question why we bothered cutting this one off, because we could have just carried on, but I'm going to rejoin the white now. And you do a 3 chain, so into the first stitch, three chain, 1, 2, 3, and you're going to do a treble into the first stitch. So this doesn't count as a stitch, so you'll do it in where you did your 3 chain. Then you'll miss the next stitch and you'll do 2 trebles into each 1 chain space. You're missing a stitch and you're doing 2 trebles in the chain space, like that. And again, miss a stitch, 2 trebles, into the chain space, and you do that all the way along, and when you get to the last chain space you do 2 trebles, and then you'll do a 1 treble in the last stitch, and you won't turn at the end of this white row either. Okay, so carry on doing 2 trebles in each of the chain spaces, and I'll see you at the end. Right, so when you get to the end of row 6, you've done 2 trebles in every chain space, and then you do a treble in that last stitch, like that. And then you fasten off. You do not turn. You do not turn. So it should be your wrong side of your work, which it is because there's my stitch marker on the back there. And you start off at this end with ice pink. Right, so you haven't turned. You'll join in your ice pink onto your wrong side. You'll join into the top here. And you'll do 3 chain. 1, 2, 3. And you're going to do a treble into the first stitch and into each stitch until the end. So this doesn't count as a stitch, so you'll be doing a treble back in there where you did your 3 chain, and then you'll do a treble in there, and then in there, and you'll do this all the way along, and you should have 170 trebles when you get to the end. Okay, so I'll see you at the end. Right, so when you get to the end of the 7th row, you should have 170 trebles, and I've just counted mine, and that's correct. And you turn, but you do not fasten off. So you turn, so you should be on your right side, which I am because I've got my stitch marker here telling me that's my right side. Right, so when you start the 8th row, you're still using the pink. So you do 3 chain, 2, 3, and you 1 treble into each of the first 2 stitches. So that doesn't count as a stitch, so you'll do it in there. It's 1, and then 2. So, and you're changing to the tomato on the last stitch. So before pulling through on that last treble, right, so you pull through, you're working both those colours at the same time. So now you strawberry, and the strawberry is 7 trebles into 1 stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you insert the hook into the first treble, back into here, and then you pull your green. This is fiddly because we're just joining them. It'll be a bit easier once they're all joined. And then you pull your green through the last treble and the first treble. And then you insert your hook into the next space. So that will be this one here, there, in between the 2 trebles. And you pull up a loop. And you do it again. You insert, pull it up, making sure it's nice and loose. Again. And you do this. So you should end up with, it's a bit fiddly, this last one. So getting it in there. So you should end up with 2, 4, 6, 7 loops on your hook, and then you pull through all 7 like that, and then you pull tight. Everything gets pulled tight, and then it tells you to, using the pink, it tells you to yarn over and draw through. And then that is your strawberry finished. Once you've done your strawberry, you then do 2 trebles in the pink. Remember to carry your threads along with you. So that will be 1, 2, and that's what your little strawberry should look like. And it is a bit pulled where I've been pulling it, so hopefully it'll sort itself out. So then you do 2 more trebles in the pink. 1, 2, and before you finish that treble, you draw the red through like that, and then you do 7 trebles into the next stitch to start your next strawberry. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you put it back in the first one, back into here, and then you pick up your green and you pull that through. And then, so don't pull it too tight because you've got to go in between each treble. So there's one here, then in between here, and in between here, 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 and then that last one. And then you should have 7 loops on the hook, and you pull through, and then you pick the pink up and you pull tight your red and your green, yarn over, and then you do 2 trebles. Like that. And that's your strawberries. And I think each one will be slightly different and unique because they are quite fiddly. And you start your repeat again, and of course your repeat again will be 2 trebles. And don't forget to carry your threads, which I have done there. So I'm going to go back and do my 2 trebles in pink, carrying the threads. I think it's a matter of pulling tight, otherwise it's going to get very baggy up here. It also doesn't help that it's quite hot under these lights, so hopefully once I get going it will be fine. So I'll do one more with you. So once we've done we'll start the repeat, which is 2 of these trebles in pink. You don't finish this one because you then add the red like that, and you do 7 trebles into this stitch down here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you're putting it in the first one, back into the last stitch, and you're pulling through the green like that. And you want to keep this pretty loose because you've got to go in between each one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that should give us 7 loops on the hook. Keep it reasonably loose and pull the green through like that. Then you can tighten things up a bit, and then you get your pink and you pull that through, and then you do 2 trebles. It's 1, 2. Making sure you're pulling your colours. And I think the trick is pulling your colours. You can see I haven't pulled the green enough there, so I need to go back and redo that. Be like that, and then you start your repeat. So that'll be, so you're in fact doing 4 pinks in between each strawberry. Don't get confused. So 4 pinks in between each strawberry. You don't quite finish the last one because that's when you're going to put your red in, but you need to make sure that your red and green are pulled tight. And then you can put your red in there like that. And you're doing 7 again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So back through this one, back in there. Make sure the green is nice and tight. This is really fiddly with all these things. So pull that through. Now keep it loose while you thread these in here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7 on the hook. Pull it through. Then tighten up your red and then change to pink. Like that. And then make sure you've got them down there and do 2 trebles. 1, 2. And there we are. And then you can tighten it up a bit. And that's what it's going to look like. And it's a matter of tightening it up before you move on so you don't get any bagginess in here. And that's it. And you repeat that all the way along, remembering that you're actually doing 4 pinks in between. Okay, I'll see you at the end, and hopefully it'll look a bit tidier because I'm going to get away from these lights. Right, so we're nearing the end of row 8 now, and one tip I would say is I've kept the red to this side of me, the green in the middle, and the pink in front, and I've kept that all the way along, and that's made it easier. Once you've done the strawberry, you want to pull the red, pull the green, and then start working the pink, the 4 trebles, holding in the thread. So that's 2, 3, 4, and then, like I say, you want to pull the red first, make sure that's nice and tight, and the green, so you're pulling that in, making sure that's tight. Then you're pulling the red in here, and you're doing 7, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then keep the red, definitely keep the red loose when you get to this stage. Then putting that through there, pull the green so that the green's nice and tight. Then your green through, and then I find putting my finger in there, stretching it out, but keeping the green as tight as you can, but leaving it this far from the hook. And then you're doing your yarn overs through the spaces, and then when you've got 7 on there, you pull it through, and then it's a matter of pulling the red, pulling the green, pulling the pink, and then that goes through there, and then I think it's 2 trebles to finish with, and weaving in. There. And when you get to the end, you turn and you fasten off the tomato and the grass. And that's what it should look like. And now I'm going to cut the ends here, and I'll probably tie them together at the end there, and then weave them in at a later date, and you carry on with the pink. Right, so when you get to row 9, you do 3 chain after you've turned, and you do a treble into each stitch to the end. Now this doesn't count as a stitch, so you'll do 1 in here, like that. Then you'll do 1 in this one here, like that. Then when you get to the strawberries, all you do is go into 1 green. So you find the biggest one with the V, like that, and you do a treble into that, like that. You don't go into the red, you then go in to the pink, light pink again. There should be 4 of those. Then 1 green, and then into the pink. then the green, and then the pink. And you do that all the way along, and that should give you 170 stitches, and that's what it looked like. Right, so when you get to the end of row 9, it should look like that. I've counted, I've got exactly 170 trebles. You fasten off the strawberry, and it has drawn it in a bit. You turn it so that you're on your right side, and then you join the white and you start row 10, which will be this one here. And you do 3 chain, 1, 2, 3, and you treble into each stitch until the end. Now that doesn't count as a stitch, so you'll be going into the same one there. And I'm going to try and weave in my ends as I go along. So that'll be another one there. And I'm going to try and keep it reasonably close together so that it tidies it, pulls it in a bit, because obviously it did wave out a bit. And that's what it's going to look like. So I'm going to do a treble all the way along. And when I get to the end, I should have 170 again. And you don't turn this time. You fasten off, but you don't turn. So just continue with the trebles all the way along, and I'll see you at the end. Right, at the end of row 10, you come to the end, you should have 170 trebles. You fasten off, and it says do not turn. So you do not turn. So you stay on the right side, and you join the blue. So staying on the right side, you can see my strawberries are on the right side. Then you join the lagoon blue into the stitch. This one here. And it says you do 1 chain. And you double crochet into each of the first 2 stitches. So that will be this one, because it doesn't count as a stitch, or 1 chain. And then the next one. And then it says you 1 chain and you miss a stitch. And then you double crochet into the next stitch. And then you repeat to the end. So it's similar to what you did down here. So you're 1 chain, miss a stitch, double crochet. 1 chain, miss a stitch, double crochet. And you do that all the way along, and you'll have that space in between, like you did before. So it'll be exactly like that. Okay, I'll see you at the end of row 11. Right, so when you get to the end of row 11, you should just finish with missing a stitch and then doing a double crochet. And then you're going to fasten off, and we're going to rejoin the white. So it says turn and rejoin the white. So again, we could have left that attached. I don't know why we cut that off, because we could have carried on. But they told us to cut it off, but never mind. So rejoin the white, and we're going into the wrong side, and you're going to do a 3 chain. And 1, 2, 3. Right, so row 12, 3 chain in the white, and then do a treble into the first stitch, and that will be in this stitch where you did your 3 chain, because that doesn't count as a stitch. That's your first treble, and then you do 2 trebles into each chain space, so exactly the same as what we did down here. So 2 trebles into each chain space, and I'm weaving in my ends as I'm doing it. That's 1, 2, and then again chain space, 1, 2, find the space. The lights are making my hands sweat, so I'm having a job working the yarn, slipping it through. Right, so that's what it should look like, and you carry on, you do that all the way along, and you should end up with 170 stitches. So I'll see you at the end of row 12. When you get to the end of row 12, you should have been doing two trebles in each of the chain spaces, and right at the end you'll just do 2 into the last chain space, and then you'll do 1 treble on its own into that stitch there. And if you count your stitches, you will have 170 trebles, not including the 3 chain that you started with. And then we go on to row 13, and you turn. So you should be on your right side now. And you do 3 treble. And you do a treble all the way to the end. And when you get to that end, you do not turn. And then you repeat rows, the second row, the third row, and the fourth. So that'll take you to row 16. So I will meet you at the end of row 16, and hopefully we can start the ruffles. So that looks exciting, because I think this is repeating this bit here. So I'll see you at the end of row 16. Right, so I've now finished row 16, and I've fastened off. So that was row 13, where we did trebles all the way along. Then row 14 was where we did a chain 1, miss a stitch, and a treble in. And then row 15, we then did trebles into each treble and to each chain space. And then the final row 16, we did trebles into every stitch. And that's what it should look like. So now we're going to join the pink, and we're going to do the ruffles. And you join the pink onto the first post, the first stitch of the first post. So that doesn't class as a stitch because that was your chain. So this is your first post. And I believe we do it on this one, and we do it on this one. So we join it on this post, and we do 2 chain, 1, 2, and then we do 4 half trebles. So 4 half trebles. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So it should look like that. They're sort of standing up on that treble, all standing to attention. Then you turn the panel 180 degrees. So this way. I think it'll be easier once you get moving. And then you work 5 front post half trebles around this treble here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you turn your work round and you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then turn the work back round and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the work back this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's have a look. And yes, that's what it's looking like. So that's what our little ruffle's looking like. Isn't that pretty? And you carry on doing that all the way along. And when you get to the end, you fasten off, and then you do the same with this one here. And then that will be our strawberry panel finished, and then we've got to do the same bit, this bit here, with a raspberry detail. So we'll leave that for another part. But yeah, so I'll see you when we finished the ruffle here and here. Right, so I have finished the strawberry panel with the ripples, and I must say the ripples are my favourite. I so enjoy doing them, and they're absolutely gorgeous. It's something that I think would be lovely on a kid's cardigan, round the bottom of a kid's cardigan or jumper or something. Absolutely beautiful. So I'll have to see if I could incorporate in, you know, that bit there. Wouldn't that be lovely in a cardigan? Even for myself. Yeah, so it went really well. I'm really happy with it. Very happy with it. Fits on there. A little bit expanding maybe. Came out a bit here, but it sort of pulled itself back in once we did the top bit. So yes, I'm very happy with that. I've now got to do the raspberry one, and this you have to start from scratch. You'll not put it onto another panel, so it means I've got to chain 171 stitches, so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, so I've got to get that panel done, and then I believe there is a fruit as well to be done. Is it a lemon? Yes, and then I believe we got just the lemon here that we need to do 4 of as well. So that will be in part 2. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in part 2 for the raspberry one. Bye for now.